Are my judges ready? Yes. All righty. Apologies for a slightly delayed start. My name is Susan Demers. I carry the best title at St. Petersburg College. I am the Dean of the College of Policy, Ethics, and Legal Studies. All the really important things in life, right? Yeah. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the great debate. On behalf of Dr. Williams and the Seminole Campus Provost, Dr. Mark Strickland, we're thrilled that you've joined us. Oh, look, timing is everything. Excellent. Have a seat. And this is the final round of the great debate competition. It's an honor to be part of a tradition that goes back 10 years here at SPC, but really several thousands of years in civilization. Before we start, I have to say thanks to two organizations that really made this possible. For the last 5 years, this has been organized by the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, and they have been aided and abetted in this by the Student Life and Leadership Coordinators. And so could we take a moment and thank them for all of that work? So this is my teaching moment. I want to say a few words about why we are presenting the great debate. First of all, it fulfills the college experience goal by promoting friendly inter-campus rivalry. It provides a great out-of-classroom experience for competitors and our audience members. It helps competitors hone their research skills, their writing skills, and ultimately their presentation skills. And really, if you think about it, all of life is just one long job interview for some personal relationship or other. So these are all three skills that you're going to need in life all the time. It promotes critical thinking, research, and speaking. It advances understanding of important public issues. It makes us look at a variety of topics. In fact, this year, our students have looked at these kinds of ideas. The United States should enact red flag laws similar to those passed in Florida. The United States should provide Medicare for all. This question was addressed: should sexual orientation or LGBTQ be a federally protected class or a protected status under the law? And finally, transgender athletes and women's sports, is this an unfair advantage or a case for inclusion? Big ideas, controversial ideas, timely issues which our students are becoming well-informed by researching. Not only just those doing the debating, but their classmates who were part of their original audiences and all those who listened in the preliminary competition. I want to thank all of you who've joined us here today, students, faculty, staff, family members, friends of the debaters, for turning out. I also want to recognize our judges, our timekeepers, facilitators, and the coaches who volunteered to help present this event. So, now I would like to introduce our judges, Ms. Starla Metz, the Associate Vice President here at SPC, whose bailiwick is collegiate high schools. Dr. Joseph Leopold, Dean of Communications. And Ms. Alexa, better known as Alex Heinrich, the Social Media Manager in SPC's Marketing and Communications Department. Let's also recognize our timekeepers and scorekeepers. You'll note that it takes a high degree of education to be a scorekeeper here for the great debate. First of all, Dr. Wendy Mitchell-Matthews, the Professor of Communications. Dr. Douglas Rivera, Academic Chair of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And finally, Dr. Bladar Prifty, Professor of Social and Behavioral Science. I also want to recognize all the faculty, staff, really too many to name, who served as coaches, moderators, judges in some similar role to get all of these finalists through the preliminary rounds. So do I have folks here, judges, coaches, prelim, any, yes, all right. So, let me go over the rules. All of the student debaters were assigned the same topic. The topic is, social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. And so the debaters will agree or disagree with this statement. They were randomly assigned to a debate opponent, to the speaking order, and to the position that they will argue. Let me emphasize that the position a student has been asked to argue is not necessarily their own personal beliefs. It's merely the assignment. And really, that's the purpose of debate. It's an academic exercise. Each debater will have 3 minutes in which to make the case for her or his assigned position. Each then will have 1 minute to make a rebuttal of the opponent's points and to wrap up his or her own argument. Then the debate ends. There is to be no interrupting of a speaker while making a presentation. Judges rate the debaters using a scoring system of 1 to 60, poor to excellent, and they evaluate on these 6 metrics: clarity, consistency, comprehension of relevant factors, completeness and analysis, avoidance of irrelevant factors, and finally, presentation. So, I have one addition to the rules, which is that because there were some mixed messages prior to this, all of the students will be allowed to use some form of notes. Of course, they will be scored on presentation, so over-reliance on notes might mean that their score is reduced. With that, I want to introduce our first set of competitors. We need to welcome Jessica Jones of the Seminole campus and Niall Nichol of Tarpon Springs. What? I'm so sorry. Bad information. All right. So here we go. Again, the issue is social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. Taking the agree side is Jessica Jones. Taking the disagree side is Mr. Nichol. First, we'll go to Jessica. You have 3 minutes to make your argument. The timekeeper will hold up cards to let you know when you have 1 minute left, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. And go.
All right, so I would like to start by introducing myself. My name is Jessica Jones, and I'm here at Seminole campus. I'm not quite as young as maybe some of the other students that attend SPC or some of the other participants in the debate today. I grew up in a time without the internet, but I was fortunate that I was able to be introduced to the internet at a time of my life when I was easily able to acclimate to our new digital age. I grew up with AOL Instant Messenger, and I remember when MySpace was brand new. And now there's even a comedian that has called people my age elder millennials. And now I'm a mom, and I'm raising kids in the age of social media, so I'm very aware of the ways that social media affects us and our relationships. First of all, social media affects us. It can create a social divide. I'm sure in these recent elections especially, we all remember having friends and family that probably overshared political posts, things that were very polarizing, alienating, things that really spread the bipartisan divide in our country. And now more than ever, we need to be coming together to solve the major issues our country is facing rather than being divided. I'm sure everyone in here has probably unfollowed a friend or family member at some point for these exact reasons. Oversharing, not fact-checking their stuff. And a Pew survey said that greater than 50% of participants of this survey that online political debate is stressful and frustrating. 1/3 of those participants said that they're worn out by it. We already know that stress negatively affects our health, but this type of stress can also affect other domains of our lives, such as our relationships, our careers, and our personal success. the misinformation that is spread. Social media allows a platform for misinformation to be spread, especially when people are sharing things because of the emotional trigger. It can be a platform even for allowing propaganda for terrorism, domestic and foreign. Twitter has already banned all ISIS propaganda. Facebook has banned white nationalism and white supremacy. Critics of this type of regulation claim censorship, but we have to ask ourselves, does freedom of speech include allowing for hate speech, harassment, or allowing to infringe on the rights of others or incite violence? Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Are my scorekeepers, judges ready? All right. Niall?
Thank you. I'd like to introduce myself as well. I am Niall Nichol. I am also a student here at the Seminole campus. And to kind of have a contradicting view, I, as someone who, I'm a Gen Z, I was born into a world in which the internet was something that was always here. It was never not a thing for me. And so I think that provides a very interesting perspective gap between us, because I haven't had to adapt to that, and that definitely means that I have different opinions. And so I personally believe that social media has a positive effect on politics and social interaction. My first big point that I'd like to make is its accessibility. Imagine you're in a place like Egypt or Lebanon, where the government is being extremely oppressive, there's massive conflicts, and you can't do anything alone. Social media, via its weak tie connections and networks, allows people from all over the world to be empowered and to share their messages with each other, and to show the rest of the world what other countries and governments may try to oppress. This is evident by the Arab Spring political event that happened earlier this year. The Egyptian government, and as well as some of the Middle East, was being somewhat oppressive, and the Egyptian people were not happy with this. They wanted to do something about this. But obviously, oppressive governments aren't just going to be like, oh, hey, come fix this. So what happened is they took to social media, and they spread their message, and they made the world know what was happening. They riled up support, and they eventually overthrew their oppressive government. This is not the only example of this either. This is, as many of you know, Hong Kong is a big issue. China is trying to overextend its power and be oppressive towards Hong Kong. And the list goes on and on with countries like Lebanon and other various examples. Social media is empowering the people of these countries to share their beliefs and make sure that the world knows what's really happening and not have to worry about false news from government oppression. Secondly, it saves money on advertising. As many of you know, becoming a politician is not an easy thing, and it requires a lot of money. And so social media, with its advertising, is a fraction of the cost of traditional advertising, and so it allows people with valuable ideas to spread their messages effectively and cheaply. Finally, social media enforces transparency. As many of you all know, information on social media spreads like wildfire, which enforces politicians and other people of great power to be transparent. Otherwise, if information about them that is bad gets out, they will look very manipulative and deceptive. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And now, 1 minute rebuttal from Jessica.
So a couple things that you mentioned. The first one was accessibility. Surely the internet is highly accessible, but that also means that it's going to be highly accessible by people that aren't out to seek positive change, people that are maybe trying to hurt us, like hate groups, and again, terrorism. There's a reason why Twitter has banned all things ISIS propaganda, and why now Facebook has banned white nationalist, white supremacist propaganda. You mentioned information and advertising being able to spread like wildfire, but so does the misinformation that can be seen as propaganda for negative and even violent groups of people. You mentioned a nation getting people riled up to overthrow their oppressive government, but what happens when those people are not seeking positive changes and want to overthrow a government for negative purposes? The internet definitely gives us a place, social media gives us a place to share our beliefs, but when those beliefs are filled with hate, that can be nothing but a bad thing.
Thank you. And now Niall has 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. So you mentioned that a lot of your concern is with hate groups and how propaganda is spreading. But you also mentioned that a lot of mainstream social media sites like Twitter and Facebook have already begun to ban the use and usage of hate groups to spread this information and have already begun enforcing this as well. In addition, I'd like to bring up a quote from a biography written by Adrienne Chen. This is a biography of a woman named Megan Phelps Roper, who was a former member of the Westboro Baptist Church. She was led out of the church because of her, and the influence that social media had on her life. Quote from Megan Phelps Roper, the person that she was talking to on social media seemed to genuinely care and like people, and that really personally resonated with me. She believed, before this, she believed that everybody in the outside world was out to get her and that to attack her opinion. But social media brought her out of a hate group and showed her that the rest of the world is empathetic, caring, and understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you.
Nicely done. You can step outside. I will bring in the next round, and I just want to say it's tough to go first. You guys both did a wonderful job. So, while the judges finish scoring, we'll bring in our next two contestants, Bela Park from Tarpon Springs. Hi, Bela. And Jeff Thomas from downtown. All right. Oh, there you go. That's the way to do this. I want to recognize, before we get started, the great debate coordinators and supporters from student life. So I want to name them off. Downtown Midtown, Professor Tara Newsom, and Frank Yurkovic, who is now, sadly, the Director of International Programs and lost to me in my projects. From Clearwater Campus, Professor Michael Culligan and Stephanie Henningsen. From Seminole Campus, Professor Bledar Prifty and Professor Douglas Rivera and Milena Buck. From the St. Pete Gibbs campus, Professor Katie Snell and Barbara Weaver, and from the Tarpon Springs campus, Professor Eric Tucker, Amy Lesniak, and Garviette Ray. So, a round of applause for this dedicated group of faculty and staff. Again, let me remind you, the issue is social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. Taking the agree side is Bela Park. Taking the disagree side is Jeff Thomas. First to go will be Bela. You have 3 minutes to make your argument. The timekeeper will flash up time cards at 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. Okay? And the floor is yours.
Social media has negatively impacted our lives in many ways, one of which is simply communication failure. We, as a society, can no longer fully and properly communicate with each other because of the impact that social media has. We don't think, we don't use the right words, and most of our language is in tone and body language. So, when you have social media, you take both of those away, and you're left with just words, which can be interpreted in any way that anyone wanted. Further, anything can be said and believed true. Fake news spreads majorly through social media. This is seen in Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, where you have anything that pops up is like, oh, Fox News said this. But did they actually say that? And does that actually what they mean? Then you have where it takes up so much time out of your day that you could be spending on other things that are much more productive, where you're spending them on your phone, on social media, arguing with people that are probably hiding behind a screen name and actually not even voicing their true opinions. Then, in my generation, we have where it's lowering self-esteem. Everything's dependent on likes, comments, views, shares. But that's not important. It's become the center of a focus for people to get their worth from what's said on social media. What someone liked, what someone commented, how many likes you get. And that's just not what's worth it. Social media is extremely negative, and those are my reasons why.
Thank you. Now, Jeff, you have 3 minutes for the opposite position.
Good afternoon, everyone. My fellow veterans, honorable judges, fellow classmates, and most welcome guests. My name is Jeff Thomas. I'm a U.S. Air Force Class 4 veteran. I agree social media improves our social and also our political lives. In fact, it has a positive influence in our lives. People use social media for many things: socializing, finding friends, and the ability to connect to other people all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, over 2.4 billion Facebook users and over 330 million Twitter users, connecting with people, which has proven health benefits. Social media also has a positive effects as on politics. Now voters can interact more easily with their candidates and elected officials on social media platforms like online meeting Zooms, online chat rooms allows to have conversation with their leaders. However, another tribute of social media can help people connect with people and stay in touch with them whom they are already close to. Social media also helps reduce loneliness of senior citizens who are socially isolated and increase social time and brings families close together. When I served in the Gulf War, defending my country, along with the 250,000 other troops, we missed our families. Social media, Facebook was very important to us. They allowed us to communicate and stay in touch with our family and friends. We had conversations with our wives, and some of my guys saw the child for the very first time, their baby. It really boosts our morale for our military troops. While serving overseas, my mother had a stroke and couldn't travel anymore. She would love seeing photos of her children or grandkids, and to be able to reach out to them was a blessing. It added many more years to her life because of this connection. It was great. And my last point is something very special, very close to my heart. Every day, 22 veterans commit suicide. The U.S. military and Department of Veterans Affairs use social media to help prevent suicide by getting the word out and to find help. Most military would rather go on social media than to talk to someone in person. Social media has been a tremendous help to our veterans. The Veterans Crisis Hotline is staffed 24 hours a day, and most of our veterans find these resources on the internet. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So, Bela, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
With the topic of the suicide hotlines using social media, it's also taking away what there is between actual human interaction, which also goes into one of the other points you made, where people are using social media to make connections with other people and improving their health, which can't truly be done through a screen. Just because someone may say, oh, yeah, this is great, you're such a great person. A lot of people don't truly take it to heart unless it's from someone that they truly know in person. And health benefits come more from socializing in person, which with social media, we're losing our touch with in-person communication. And because of this, we are starting to fail as a society.
Jeff, 1 minute for rebuttal.
I appreciate your viewpoint, but I believe social media has truly made our world a better place to live in. In a time when we travel for work and become a norm, and so many people required to be in different places multiple times, social media allows individuals a chance to stay close with their families and friends and stay politically connected. Social media has also created an exciting outlet to stay connected with current events in the world and grow political engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, social media is not your enemy. It's your friend. And it provides us with resources that we have never known before. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bella. Thanks, Jeff. Let's give them a round of applause. So while our judges complete their scoring sheet, we'll bring in the next competitors. All righty. So this is the 6th year since the Great Debate was reactivated by the Institute. And over the years, our students have debated such divisive issues as suppression of free speech, guns on campus, the Stand Your Ground law, legalization of medical marijuana, eliminating term limits, and mandatory vaccination. In other words, all the big topics of our day. And the best part about debate is that it is designed to be civil and teaches us how to learn from people with whom we disagree. If you only speak to people who agree with you, you will merely have your preconceived notions reinforced. Debate gives us the opportunity to broaden our perspective and learn from our fellow citizens. So I'm going to call up Don Blake from the downtown campus, Mr. Blake, and Reed Osterloth from St. Pete Gibbs. So once again, since our competitors have been outside the room, here's the protocol. We're going to debate this issue. Social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. Taking the agree side, Mr. Blake. Taking the disagree side, Mr. Osterloth. Going first will be Mr. Blake. You have 3 minutes to make your argument. The timekeeper has time cards for 1 minute left, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. All righty? Same protocol when you take over the microphone, and let's begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Blake. In this debate, I will argue that social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. My first point focuses on how this debate actually forces us to examine 2 questions. The first question is, does social media as a technology have a negative impact on our social and political lives? Social media, after all, is technology. It is insentient. It's inanimate code. Its algorithms are binary bots that track you. They collect and store your likes and your dislikes. They recognize and capture your face, your fingerprints, your pictures, shopping, voting habits, where we live, where we eat, and who we date. All of this, our social capital, can never be retracted, redacted, or deleted. Then there's the second question. How does our social media persona, how do we interact? And does that have a negative impact on our social and political lives? In other words, how we use social media technology. A 2017 article published in Psychology Today reported findings from research that chronicled how social media is among the top 10 reasons why teenagers suffer from anxiety. It is ironic that the purpose of social media is said to be to bring people together. Yet, it can be the sole reason for someone to feel completely alone. It is easy for all of us to get mixed up in cyberbullying and indulge in bad behavior when behind a screen. Looking someone in the eye while hurting them is the part that stops people from doing this. Social media doesn't discern bigots from liberals. Remember the Unite the Right March in Charlottesville, Virginia? White nationalist organizers used social media to organize this event. This is the dark side of the rise of social media in our social and political lives. Finally, I argue that social media has helped to create an epistemic crisis in our society and politics. Extremist groups are free to ignore legacy institutions and the factual data that they publish. They create and publish their own reality, conspiracy theories, to others and encourage wild ideological principles. They are social media separatists who believe real news is fake and fake news is real. They loathe all sources of credible news and believe education institutions are corrupt and that they corrupt the minds of students. In conclusion, I have no doubt that social media, the technology and the use of it, has a negative impact on our social and political lives.
Thank you. Mr. Auster?
Social media is more expansive than you could ever possibly believe. It is every platform that allows communication. We hear about tragedies and successes not months or weeks after, but mere minutes. We can make a clear link with the rise of hashtag movements and the power that they have. First, I'm going to start with the Black Lives Matter movement, which has followed the 2012 shooting of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. This demonstration has led to a modern civil rights crusade against the unjust death of African Americans and institutionalized racism. This crusade has able to bring about real change in changing the communities and taking people out of power who allow this. Anita Alvarez was a state prosecutor in Chicago and was taken out of her position of power due to the fact that she had failed to indict officers who had fatally shot 68 people. This has also led to 4 unprecedented reports from the U.S. Department of Justice showing police corruption across the nation. Finally, it is the first U.S. social movement, as designated by the ACLU, to say this is mediated mobilization, the use of social media to bring people together and mobilize for change. Another group using mediated mobilization is the Me Too movement, which has worked to tear away the stigma of sexual harassment and coming out against your accusers. Women can come forth, and their accounts are generally more believed, and they are protected. There has been a greater accountability looking from the legendary actors, talking such as Bill Cosby, who has been taken down and shown to be a true sexual predator, going towards such as Harvey Weinstein, who was taken down as well, even in the more shadows of the industry. The Me Too movement showed the systematic problems that women can endure in society, and it has allowed for further accountability and brought forth more protection for women in a global sense. Finally, we can look at the rise of communication and connection across the wide world of the internet. Social media isn't just Twitter and Facebook. It is connected across online gaming. Esports is one of the most massive industries nowadays. As of 2018, it numbered in 380 million people. That is triple the Super Bowl. This is a global community that people share in. According to sociologists in Stanford, there was a study showing that 40% of heterosexual couples and 60% of same-sex couples meet online. This is the #1 way for people in the US to meet. I'm a happy recipient of that. I have met my girlfriend, who I have called the most wonderful girl in the world, through the power of online social media. And using that, even though birth may have kept us 1,500 miles away from each other, social media allows us to be at just a few clicks. Personally, I couldn't exchange that for anything. That's the power of social media, to make connections and to make people truly happy and in love. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I hear everything that you're saying, and it draws me back to my initial point about the technology and then the capital, the social capital. Everything that you talked about, I would have to say it's great, and I agree that there are some good things that have happened out of the social capital on social media. But what about the technology, the issue around how we deal with regulation, how we deal with the need to identify when things go awry, like, for example, our presidential election in 2016. How are we prepared? How is social media, the technology, prepared to endure the strain of hacking, to endure the strain of misuse of data, to endure the strain of a presidential election being thrown?
Thank you. And 1 minute for rebuttal, sir.
In looking at that, all technologies face that exact same problem. The idea of corruption, as we've had books that were potentially false, that didn't have correct information, it is the idea of society on the whole to push forward, to make those technologies more accountable. We have seen over the past 2 years, talking about the presidential election, multiple social media institutions working to make themselves more transparent, take away those pages that are considered a false news or considered not necessarily reputable. We are working towards that. It is not the fault of social media. It is the fault of all technology to be exploitable at the beginning. But we, as a society, must acknowledge that and move forward to have a better social media system overall and to protect ourselves for our future, because that social media is our future.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So our next set of contestants are approaching the stage, and they gave me a little filler, which is actually good information. Today's competition isn't just about education. Our participants are competing for a share of over $1,300 in cash and prizes. Thanks again to Student Life and Leadership, which has each donated $500. The Institute would also like to give a special thanks to the Seminole Student Government Association, who helped fund student participation in Institute programs through their continued support. So, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, all right. I'm going to call Jessica Harbauer from the Clearwater campus and Fabian Rivera from the Seminole campus. In today's competition, the first and second place finalists from respective campuses are all here in the finals, but we also want to give thanks to the third place member who showed up here today as alternates, and we couldn't do a competition unless you have the whole team here. So thanks to those of you who provided that underground support for us. And here we go. I'm going to give you the same rules I gave everybody else. All right, you've got 3 minutes, 3 minutes. What happens is you are notified of 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. All right? Let's go with a brief restatement just in case the audience has lost their minds. Social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. Taking the agree side, Jessica Harbauer. Taking the disagree side, Fabian Rivera. And going first is Jessica.
So we've all had our own experiences with bullies. Could be in school, could be in work, honestly, could even be your family. Now, when you take away that interaction face-to-face and then put them behind a computer screen, it takes on a whole new life. We've seen firsthand the cyberbullying and how it has taken over and affected so many people's lives negatively. And on top of that, we also have the side to which you see people day to day and they put on this persona online and it affects our mental health. And all of this goes into our mental health, which is so drastically affected day to day. You can put on anything for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've all seen it. We've seen the models. We've seen the people that we're friends with, and we're like, how do you look that way? I could never achieve that goal. And that is drastically affecting all of us. On top of all of that, that comes into the body shaming. We have the political views. We have which lead us into blocking family members, or even worse, becoming numb to it. And we all need to be more aware of what is going on with our own selves. When we look in the mirror, who do we see as people? Are we seeing ourselves as these images that we're seeing on social media? To me, yes. Quite frankly, when I walk past a mirror sometimes, I'm like, I need a smaller body. I need my hair to be certain colors. I need my makeup to look a certain way. And this is just something that cannot be ignored, and something that we need to take an honest stab at trying to solve. On top of that, I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but our fake articles that are meant to manipulate us in our political lives. We need to take on this personally, we need to take this on as an atrocity, and we need to start doing more research and finding these better ways to get our information than through social media, because we as a country are being too easily manipulated day in and day out by what we are seeing on social media. I yield the rest of my time.
All right. Mr. Rivera, 3 minutes.
Social media has been incorporated into our modern society. For the last century, since 2000, everyone has known about Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, at the very least. Many people have incorporated social media into their daily lives, enabling them to become clearer connected to family members who live far away, enabling people to have better ability to communicate with one another, and even allowing a free private messaging system to enable them to not pay the high wages of services. I myself am participated in an organization that is trying to reach out to African and Asian countries to help spread our faith and enable us to have a better connection to those around us. We are using social media to help spread our ideals, our morals, and enable us to have a stronger presence so that we are not perceived in the stereotypes of our faith. We also use organizations such as Pinterest and Instagram to show how we can use our humanitarian efforts and show that we are not just trying to, shove down a book down your throat. No, we're trying to show you morality. We're trying to show you kindness in a life that is very difficult sometimes. Another example is many people use social media to enable them to spread their businesses. Very small businesses have a difficult time competing in other competitive markets due to name brands. Many people will go to Nike instead of a small company like Rich Fabrics or something similar. Many people will look for who presents themselves. So social media enables us to influence the market and enable us to spread small businesses' names. I'm also part of an organization that's attempting to sell jewelry at discounted prices, but it's having a difficult time due to, it's not Walmart, it's not Time and True, it's not Target, and it won't enable them to experience this new quality of product because they only see the name brand, they don't see the value of the product itself. Social media enables us to connect to these people and enable us to spread out names and enable us to have a better connection with those we're trying to connect to instead of it trying to divide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. So Jessica, you have 1 minute rebuttal.
So you mentioned about families. I don't know about everybody else's families, but some of my families that live in other states, I would really like to leave them there sometimes with the things that they say and the things they do, which goes back into my mental health argument. But on top of that, I appreciate what you're saying about advertisements and companies and so on and so forth, but how many of us really look at any of those advertisements? Can anybody tell me the last one you looked at? Like, legitimately? And then outside of that, actually went and bought something from them. So that, that argument, while I appreciate it, it doesn't really work. And the other problem to that is these big businesses have more money to put in to fund these fund these advertisements. So more than likely, it just plays into the same role of whoever has the most money is going to win.
And Fabian.
During your argument, you talked about a very series of information. You talked about police approach, cyberbullying, but I feel as though these arguments only apply to those who try to spread that out, who try to spread out the negativity. So if we enable ourselves to spread positivity, block those negative posts, sometimes even block the family members we don't agree with who constantly bring up arguments. If we try to build a community that has a positive outreach, that has positive posting, positive videos, then these negative aspects of our daily lives will be altered due to the fact that we're spreading positivity. And as a quick note, the organization I'm working with a small business, we have strict rules that we will not allow any negative hate speech or any disrespect to another person. We respect every people's values. You may disagree, but you cannot spread hate speech. Thank you.
Thank you both. So to spare you my brief history of debate, the final contestants are approaching the stage. And I'll just give you the real potted history. It all started with the Greeks, The Romans thought they improved it, and we're struggling with whether or not it's been an improvement to this day. And here we have Matthew Abbot, who is from the Clearwater campus, and Victoria Sullivan from the St. Pete Gibbs campus. All righty. So once again, our topic is social media has a negative impact on our social and political lives. Taking the agree side is Matthew Abbot. Taking the disagree side is Victoria Sullivan. Going first will be Mr. Abbot. You have 3 minutes to make your argument. The timekeeper will hold up flashcards at 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and stop. All right? And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So today we're here to discuss why social media is having a negative effect on our relationships. And to make the argument that social media isn't having an effect on our relationship is basically the equivalent of being a climate denier. And I don't know too many of them, but I don't feel that they're all that bright. Because the science, it's there. The science points to the fact that social media has dramatic negative effects against our social patterns. According to a study done by George Washington University, they found that young adult social media site and profile use is associated with ATOD, which is alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use with depressive states. If that's the case, the more you use social media, the more depressed and likely you are to use harmful substances. And again, people have a far more dynamic interaction when they are socially involved, whether it's churches or any kind of support groups that they go to, like AA, to have the help that they need at a complex level. In the Journal of Affective Disorders, Dr. Hrsa stated or found that face-to-face emotional support was associated with slightly lower odds of depression, while social media-based emotional support actually was associated with slightly greater odds of depression. So when you post on Facebook and you're looking for that emotional support, odds are you're actually more depressed reaching out for help on that social media platform. Well, that's a negative effect, isn't it? Even our own governments are looking at what kind of effect social media is having. Health Resources and Services Administration notified the public that there are many nations facing a crisis of loneliness. The United States, Germany, Australia, the UK are all saying that they have a growing epidemic of loneliness. The Hrsa.gov polled 148 independent prospective studies, including more than 300,000 participants, that revealed a greater social connection, i.e. physical contact with people, is associated with a 50% reduced risk of early death. So if you meet more people and you're around more people physically, not just through social media, you're not going to die lonely and sad at an early age. Even our own government is saying that. You can't deny it. These are the facts. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So today when we're discussing social media and the effects of which it has, first we must start with the definition of it. Merriam-Webster defines social media as forms of communication such as websites and social networking and microblogging through which online users create communities to share information, ideas, personal views, and other content such as videos. However, this is not a clear statement as to what social media really is, because based off this definition, you can look at generic sites such as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but you can also use it to classify things like video games as social media as well. So when we look at social media, it needs to be redefined by the usage of it. According to Statistica.com, Instagram users had 1 billion active accounts as of 2018, but according to the Global Marketing Gaming Report, there was 2.2 billion users as of 2018. So if all these people are willing to be a part of this social media, we must first ask ourselves why. When a study was done by the Entertainment Association, it found that video gamers use this as much as social media, which is about 89 minutes per day. When 90% were asked why, they said it because it increased their enjoyment and it helped them to increase their mental stimulation. 80% said it helped them fight dementia, and 54% said it increased their mobility. But that's just video games. Let's take a look at other forms of social media that aren't necessarily conventional. For one, OkCupid. One of my professors actually used OkCupid to find her husband, and they've been married for 7 years. But that's just one instance. According to Pew Research, 23% of online daters found their long-term life partner using the site, or 17% just use it to help them find a connection. This clearly shows that when social media is used, people don't feel isolated, as the pro likes to say, but more so connected, especially if they're placed in rural areas where they don't have as much of a connection to other people. Moving on, when we're looking at politics for it, the one main reason as to why people feel that social media helps it is because it allows the person to feel connected to the politician. So, in a study that was done by Harvard, it actually showed that when social media is used, it has trust filters in it. What trust filters are basically is when people hear a politician speaking, they know that they can go and they can fact check whatever they're saying. So if someone says, if a politician were to talk about climate change and how it is affecting it and what they wish to do, the person that's listening to this has the ability to go on and check it and see if what they're saying is factual. Also, according to Journalist Resource, 82% of participants said that they showed a positive relationship between social networking sites and the political engagement of which they had. So this in turn shows that there is a strong correlation between people who are making more connections with the political side of life as they would through the news. Thank you.
And now you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
So a lot of the things that you said certainly make sense, but to say that there's one study, Harvard said one thing, there is bounds and bounds of information available that negates everything that you said. And the study at George Washington University actually specifically cites the fact that Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, your online dating, and video games, they actually looked at all of those things and they examined how support inside of those platforms actually had higher risks of depression. So we might be more connected, but we're more disconnected from the people in front of us, our loved ones that we sit next to every day. I mean, how many times have you been in a room sitting around and everybody's on their phone? And you're just like, well, I might as well be on my phone. So we look around and we're not any bit closer, we're further away than we've ever been in our history.
And you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. So throughout your argument, you talked about how young adults were more likely to use tobacco and other addictive drugs and substance abuse while using social media. But that's more making it just a hasty generalization of people, because you can't just say that because I use Facebook, I'm now going to become an alcoholic. You say that we're more disconnected from the people in front of us, but it actually allows for us to make a greater connection. Maybe we are not necessarily looking at the people in front of us, but we do talk with other people outside of what's in front of us. We're allowed to be more culturally unaware of things, because I have the ability to be friends with someone that is in Korea as well as I do with someone that's in Norway. So I still have the ability to be connected, and it does allow for a greater personal experience. When the government looks at the effects of social media, there are some drawbacks to it, but I don't believe that those drawbacks necessarily negate what they allow the person to be able to do in terms of their political engagement. Thank you.
Thank you both. All righty. So while our judges are finishing their score sheets, actually just Matthew, Victoria, come on, let's everybody come up. I want to invite all these debaters back up here and thank them for participating. It's not easy. We hope you've gotten something out of it. Not only the engagement, meeting each other, pretty nice lunch.
Yeah, let's go over
Yeah, all of you guys on this side. But also you've, let's say, prospered academically. So I'm going to take a moment, since I've got you up here and people are tabulating, and I'm a curious person. I think I'm going to go down the line. So I have a few questions. There you go. We've got a whole stage, guys. You don't all have to be left-leaning. We can go right-leaning, too. Yeah, there you go. All righty. So I have some questions for you, and the first one is just quickly down the line. How many of you have participated in an organized debate before? Yes? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so not a majority. So thank you. First of all, those of you who've done it before, thanks for coming back for a second at-bat. And those of you who have not, thank you for being brave. All right? So I want to ask just how many of you had to argue a position that was not your position? Ah, okay, the thrill of debate. Yeah, okay. So could you have taken either side? Yes? The more research you did, were you did you feel stronger about your point of view, or did you, as the Florida jury instruction says, vacillate or waver in your conviction? What happened? The more you researched, the more you saw that there were some equities on the other side as well. Yes, sir.
One of the difficulties I had with formulating my opposite opinion, the opinion I actually debated on, was I couldn't find enough research to give me a strong position. So my position seemed more personal due to the fact that I couldn't give you a journal entry or a scholarly source that can exhibit my position well. Whereas my agreed side, where social media had a negative effect, I found a slew of information. I found how it affects your brain. I found how it damaged family ties. I found how the news was connected to this. It was an influx of information, whereas social media being a positive outlet was very difficult to find.
Those of you who were on the positive side, did you have a similar experience? No, you found that little treasure trove. Okay, so pass the mic down here, and I'm going to ask you just briefly. You can grab another mic. Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I can have two microphones. Now it's dangerous. Okay. So let's pass it down, and let me ask you this. Where did you do your research? What were your principal tools?
I use the SPC database mostly.
One for the librarians.
It's a great source to build any kind of argument and even any paper. I mean, it's such an invaluable resource. I'm a 4.0 student, and I attribute that to being able to do extensive research and work on my projects to the best of my ability because of what's available on that database.
Super. So what a huge plug for the library. Yes. All right, pass it along. Where'd you do your research?
So this is going to sound kind of generic, but it's the exact same answer. I did all of mine on the SPC database, and I do all of my research through there for my classes.
From home, or are you actually sitting in a library?
From home.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that digital library.
Oh, well, I'll just be quick. I use Google Scholar mostly because I felt like Google Scholar was a great way to get to the sources that sometimes the library doesn't have. You know, some blogs to get, your foundation in your argument, and then finding similar articles from scholarly, peer-reviewed articles to neaten it up a little bit. So I use Google Scholar, and I'm not ashamed to use it, but I did use Wikipedia to get I used it for the basis to get, just throw myself, wet my feet a little bit, and then I went and looked for scholarly sources.
I used primarily looking for the school database after I'd really created my basic arguments I wanted to go off of, and really going into the school database, not necessarily to find statistics to base my argument off of, but more to find the history and basis to really keep moving forward, and then a lot of news to find the ramifications that we've seen, especially socially. Was looking into the news a lot to find those cases.
Okay, Ms. Sullivan?
I used mainly Google Scholar and the SPC library for the most part, but I also did like to venture out, which is how I found one of my really cool statistics from the Global Gaming Report. I actually had to use LinkedIn to hunt down the person that published it to find her article.
Excellent. Ms. Jones?
I also use the SPC online library as well as Google Scholar. And I ventured out too, and I just kind of did some generalized Googling. I read several opinion articles that I thought were very interesting and gave me some good perspective and helped give me direction for my research into more scholarly articles.
I used to work in the technology industry, so I pulled from some of my background as an advocate for social media. But to add some of the data that I needed, I love Google like Donald Trump loves WikiLeaks. So.
Hi everyone. I actually use the SPC databases. I don't study at home. I actually go to the library because it makes me want to study. When I'm at home, I'm thinking about honey-do lists. What I wanted to do today is kind of different. I wanted to use my personal stories because it means a lot to me, the years I've spent in the military, and that's what I wanted to use. And I want to go to a special shout out to my professor, Dr. Newsom. She was one of my coaches, and we worked on it, and I really appreciate that because I wouldn't be here today without a coach, because it takes a team, and we all know in the military it's a teamwork. And my classmates were very supportive, so it was great to be here today. Thank you.
Bella? I actually didn't do all of that much with research, more so with personal experience and a few science fair projects I had taken part of that were all, is social media good or bad for us as people? And I did also use a little bit of the SPC website because it came up with some of our classes actually, and so that was rather helpful.
Hello. I'd used two main things, three. I used a lot of op-ed articles. The second thing that I really pulled from though, is I was on the SPC Model United Nations team this semester. Thank you. And as a lot of you probably saw, I based a lot of my argument off international relations, and so I pulled a lot of my research from this semester into this, which includes things like Encyclopedia Britannica, entries on country analysis, research via YouTube, government research institutions, and many others. But also, I'm in Composition 2 this semester, and one of the main discussion points of our class has been the effects of social media on true social change and empathy and understanding and networks and things such as that. And so I pulled a lot of my conversation points and articles that I've read for that class out into this. And so that's where I got most of my research.
So that is every teacher's dream, that they will actually teach you something relevant to your life today.
Absolutely.
So let me I've got 2 seconds, all right? So here's my big question. If my students were here, they would tell you that I pretty much end every course with this one question. From this experience, what is the big takeaway? What did you learn from this? It can be a big thing about yourself. It can be a big thing about the world. What did you learn in this process? Starting at that end.
Thank you. I think the biggest thing that I personally got out of this was learning to be not to overestimate your preparedness and your skill. Initially, when I came to the first debate, I'm actually a backup. I was not I placed third place. I'm a backup. And so I came into the first debate, and Miss Jessica can probably attest to this. I was quite, I overestimated how prepared I was. And so this experience has really showed me to be humble in your research, but also to come with an open mind and not feel as though you are completely ready and be open to adaptation.
Great.
My major takeaway is that preparedness eases your anxieties about things, and so that was definitely something that I'll take to debates next year.
All right, great. And we'll see you next year then. Excellent. Jeff?
Again, my major takeaway was don't be afraid to ask for help. This was kind of, wasn't it, guys? It wasn't easy. But I wasn't afraid to ask Professor Newsom for help and some other friends of mine, and it's great. I never thought I'd be up here on stage. I've been out of school for 40 years, and all my buddies says, hey, you've been out of school since 1974. It's time to go back to finish your college. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. Back in our time, we didn't have computers, so this is all new to me. So 40 years later, I'm going back to finish my degree, and this has been a great experience, and thank you so much.
Blake?
The need for succinctness.
And he lives and breathes it. All right. Ms. Jones?
This experience really taught me about finding my voice. Prior to the first round of this tournament, I had never participated in any sort of public speaking or debate event ever. I was very nervous about it, but I did my research, and obviously it paid off. And now I feel like I gained my voice from this, and that I can go out into our community and do things to evoke positive change, to actually be a role in our community to bring about the changes that we need.
And that is why the taxpayers support your education, to have a real involved citizen. Thank you.
From this experience, I think the most important thing that I learned was to never underestimate what I think I have. I thought a lot of my arguments were weak and that they wouldn't hold up well against anybody. And then when I went to my professor's office hours and I read it to her and we talked about it, she told me like that they were stronger. So I feel it kind of built my confidence in the fact that I'm able to make cogent, logical arguments and not have to worry all the time if I'm making stronger ones versus what I think I'm making.
Oh, my heart just went pitter-pat on cogent, logical arguments. Oh, all right.
My biggest thing was that I really learned going through it was about workshopping and continually editing and, constantly, having a thing prepared for 3 weeks, but every single week adding something new, taking something out, changing just your word choice, and really making something that sounded as beautiful as you thought it was in your head.
My experience is sort of like a culmination of everybody's experience here. Editing, reading it out loud, debating yourself in front of a mirror, finding your voice. I took a very long process. Last year, I did the Constitution Day speech, and Dr. Rivera can attest to this. I was as nervous as a frightened cat in front of a dog. I was shaking. But I did well, and then I did the Constitution Day speech again this year. I did better. I did the preliminaries. I did better, and now I'm here, the final debate, talking to you, and I feel as though, even though I still get nervous, I'm not as nervous anymore. And getting a position, a posture, is very difficult in public speaking. Trying to present yourself is a very difficult task, and I feel through your various efforts and through your kindness and your smiles and your clapping, it really just breaks the mold and enables me to just come up here, speak clearly, do the debate, and just have fun, because that's the bottom line. We all had fun, right, guys?
Yes.
I think the biggest thing that I got from this is the combination of research and thinking on your toes. You got to have a little bit of both when you're in the real world, and this is kind of a very extreme version of it, but it helped it kind of bring it to the forefront.
Great.
One of the biggest things in my house is political discourse. Whether it's politics or just home life, we go back and forth like cats and dogs in my house, and you have to be a quick thinker and a strong presenter of your argument if you're going to survive in my house, because everybody's smart. There's not a dim bulb in my household, so getting up here and being able to articulate some decisive topics was really a unique experience that I think I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
Thank you. So, I think we have an answer to the big question here, but before I say that, before we make that announcement, I just want to thank all of you for what was clearly a lot of hard work ahead of time and your grace here today. It's just been a wonderful, it makes us proud to work at this institution just to see the product here. So thank you all very, very much. Yep.
And they'll shake their hands. These are in alpha order for 4 through 10. And then
All righty. So I have instructions. Our judges are going to come up and going to shake your hands. And here are our results. So finalists 4 through 10th place in alphabetical order: Matthew Abbot, Don Blake, Jessica Harbauer, Jessica Jones, Niall Nichol, Bela Park, Fabian Rivera. Okay, so that's 4 through 10, which means that our 3rd place winner, Victoria Sullivan. Second place goes to Reed Osterloth. And that means that Jeff Thomas is the winner of the great debate. So thank you all. We need some photo opportunities here, so if all of the contestants would, I don't know where the good spot is, right up front. Let's do this right up front. So I just want to say one last thing. There's only one winner in all of this, but you're all winners. We heard some takeaways. All of you can take these new voices and use them. We greatly appreciate your participation, but there will be many more forensic events in which you can participate. Thank you all very much, and thank you to our audience as well.